because of how our procurement is structured. If a China-made crane comes in the lowest, most responsive, responsible bidder, then we have to choose a China-made crane. And so we know that those kinds of narratives and that kind of hard talk through DoD and our federal partners, and the way to get around it is, well, give us DoD funds. So that color of money will preclude us from going to buy from China. When they did the Buy American waiver, they described in parentheses without saying except China made cranes. That's basically what they described because, there's a study that came out. There's about 80% of the cranes throughout the nation are from DZMP. Those are China made cranes, and there was a study that saying that the United States ought to be concerned that these cranes from China could be used as spy bots to cripple port operations, and that's when you have the national security arm of what we do at the port play into the criticality of how we have to be both mindful of our obligations for commerce and how the role the port plays in every economy in every community they're in, but also in Guam, in particular, what we're doing now for national security.
Half a day. It's your innovation coach, Rob Jackson, and welcome to another edition of the Innovate Guam podcast, the podcast where we explore all things innovation, technology, and improvement related to the island of Guam. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow me on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Substack. My podcasts drop at the beginning of each week. Also, be sure to check out my Innovate column in the Pacific Daily News every first and third Friday of each month. All right, my guest for today's podcast is the general manager of the Port Authority of Guam since 2019. He leads Guam's only commercial seaport. He oversees operations that move approximately 85,000 containers annually, plus 200,000 plus tons of breakbulk cargo, supporting 90% goods consumed on Guam and 30% of military-related cargo. He served multiple terms as a Guam senator, including as majority leader and chairman of the Committee on Rules. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Government and Politics from the University of Maryland and has completed Maritime Port Manager and Maritime Port Executive certifications. He is a recipient of national awards recognizing transparency, organizational excellence, and leadership in maritime management. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you Port of Guam General Manager, Mr. Rory J. Respicio. Rory, how are you
Uh,
doing today?
I'm good. Half a day. Can I call you coach?
Oh, go ahead.
Half
Go
a day,
ahead.
coach. Thank you for asking me to be on your show. I was looking forward to it, actually.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us. The port is a big place and it's really important. So I'm really looking forward to the conversation that we have today. So to start off, we have a tradition here on the podcast where we start off with some icebreaker questions to get a sense of where your head is at in terms of innovation. So, first question, what's your definition of innovation and what does innovation mean to you?
Well, innovation is about solving real problems in actual ways that stick. And why I say I look forward to this podcast is because here at the port, like you said, we're moving 85,000 containers. 90% of the goods coming in through the island come through the port. We wouldn't be where we're at today without innovation. It's not only about tech stuff, but it's looking at systems. It's looking at better ways to eliminate bottlenecks, cutting red tape, building smarter infrastructure. And I hope that within this hour, I could demonstrate to you how the port and our team have been very innovative to keep the port operational.
I'm excited to hear. more about that. Absolutely. So, in your opinion, what is one innovation or piece of technology the port needs to better serve Guam's needs?
Well, we talk about the basics. You need a gantry crane in order to move containers from the vessel to the terminal yard. We have to have gantry cranes. We have to have infrastructure that's resilient to withstand the weather. Uh, we looking at those kinds of challenges, and it's not just an app. It's not just it's not just the technology, right? It's even our employees. Our employees are what makes innovation work. So I think my most important, precious, innovative kind of tool here would be the 380 employees that we have here at the port as one unit.
Innovation leaders, it's your innovation coach, Rob Jackson here. Are you ready to elevate your vehicle fleet operations? Fleet Solutions is an AI-enabled fleet management system. Fleet Solutions provides real-time video, smart analytics, and total efficiency. Keep your people safe and keep your business moving forward faster than ever before. Fleet Solutions, arriving tomorrow, today. Visit thefleetsolutions.net or call 671-988-9748 to schedule your personalized demo and revolutionize your fleet operations today. You know, I'm a certified Lean Six Sigma black belt, and I like the fact that you talked about innovation through your employees and through improving your processes. Uh, do you all use any continuous process improvement methodologies to drive what you do on a regular basis?
Well, annually we do a climate survey, an organizational survey. It's anonymous. Last year we had about an 89.5% participation rate. We ask a gamut of questions, and the result is very inspiring, actually. We have a 99% overall approval rating. When the question is asked, rate your general feeling about what it means to be a port employee, from neutral to very satisfactory. That's where we get the results for that. We do have monthly newsletters to inform not only internally but externally what the port's doing. We're very hot on technology. We went from a JD Edwards to Enterprise One, the financial management system. That was literally a 20-year journey. Everything is on the cloud. So our financial data is real time, so we can make these kinds of decisions, informed decisions based on the data we have. If you're looking at the yard, coach, we have Track Me, where we know where
Yep.
the vehicle equipments are. If we're looking at the container movement, we have the terminal operating system that's run by Navis. uh, Everything, even the gantry cranes, those 42-year-old machines, are even run by computer software. And so sometimes it's not just the physical structure that needs to be fixed, but it's also the computer software that runs it. So
Outstanding.
a lot happening.
So that climate assessment that you were talking about, do you all use the feedback from that to like build into like your strategic plan or whatever kind of initiatives or goals that you're planning for the organization?
We do, and we also get feedback with the employees, like how they feel about just basic fairness issues, issues involving like management is fair, management is transparent, management is accountable. So you can't just tell an employee they have a voice without actually giving them opportunities to express their voice through those kinds of
Absolutely.
measures. So it's done, we could track it by division, but what I do is I don't do the individual divisional results, because then you'll start to get one division more competitive with the other. We're trying to say, we're port strong, right? It's one port, one
Right.
fight. And if one division is lacking in some area, then it hurts all of us. Even during the pandemic, we were the only agency to stay 100% operational throughout the entire pandemic. And from day one of the governor's emergency declaration, I made it very clear to the management team that every employee is essential. Even more so, the custodians are essential because they have to sanitize, they have to, because I didn't want to see a list of essential employees and then a list of non-essential employees, and yet we're still required to be 100% operational. I said if there's any employees they've identified as non-essential, then maybe they don't need to be here. So everybody's essential. And also it's demoralizing. On a Monday, they're gonna, oh, you're non-essential, but guess what? By Wednesday, you're essential. So
Yeah.
from that
Yeah.
moment, it's how do you motivate a workforce and how do you show them that they're coming to work, even the folks in finance. If nobody's there to do the billing, to generate the revenue, to collect the revenue, to do payroll, the,
Yes.
the whole equal the sum. And the pandemic really showed us how important we are together as one unit as opposed to operating in silos and being fragmented. And so that's why we have strong results in our organizational climate survey. That's why you're seeing productivity go from an average before 2019 from 36 hours berth time for one vessel down to about 24 and a half hours. And so we quantified those metrics, even the number of moves per hour, because we had a chairman, Frank Santos, when I first started here, Coach Rob, he said, Rory, you pay attention to the employees because if they're upset, they'll run the forklift about 3 miles per hour. They'll slow things down. So you
Yeah.
ask how do every Monday I see the vessel productivity report from what it's like this last week versus the week prior, and if I start to see those kinds of delay in vessel ops, for example, those are red flags for me. Is it because of employee morale, or is it because there's problems with the carrier, the agent processing the vessel, or
Yes.
what is the issue? Why did we have longer berth hours this past week than the week before? And so the constant feedback I give to the ops team, I also think is a motivator because they know that someone's paying attention to the bottom line, and that's how you keep an organization going. So I think.
All right. All right. Well, good. Okay. So you talked about already, the port handles like 90% of all the goods that come into Guam. Can you share the latest stats on like containers, break bulk, vessel calls, and basically what it means to the residents of Guam, the business that you do down at the port in terms of numbers?
So it's average about 85,000 containers a year, about 20,000 pounds of break bulk. Break bulk is everything that's non-containerized. Whatever can't fit in a 20 foot or 40-foot container is called break bulk. Uh, if you're your general public, your listening audience, if they could just visualize just whatever they see in the room. They see a table, they see chairs, furniture, the car they drive, just 90% of everything in front of them more than likely came to the Port Authority of Guam. Whether it was in a
Hmm.
container or whether it was even rebars, those are called break bulk because they can't be containerized. Vehicles come off through a roll on, roll off. And so not only are we servicing the island of Guam, we're also hub and spoke for transshipment for containers going to the other islands. So they'll come here in the larger vessels, and then the containers will come off the vessel and then get put on a smaller feeder vessel to go to maybe Sinamai, maybe Yap, Chuk, Koshrai, Pohnpei, Palau, and throughout the region. So, the Port of Guam is extremely critical. In the first year, we have an organization called a Tuscum. It's regional, and we have such a strong partnership regionally that we're not competitive. We whatever happens in one port that's a success, it benefits all of us, and so that's how they see it as well. We partner with the CNMI to apply for like the Marine Highway grant program through MARAD. We do those things together. And on a
Mm,
local level, we have a very strong partnership with the Port Users Group. That's where all the carriers, all the agents, anyone who has anything to do with the port, their stakeholders, at least 1 hour of the month, they set aside their own agenda, their business agenda, and they advocate for what's in the best interest of the port. And it's a model that's working because, of course, by their very nature, if everybody's competitive, one carrier is going to want to one up the other carrier, but they know that if the Port of Guam is not um, operational, it hurts everyone. And so I think that's what we started in 2019 is we saw a breakdown in relationships, internal, external. We saw what kind of innovation is needed to point out how the current system at the time wasn't working, even with the tariffs and how it's billed. I've identified some underbillings and it's just our approach in how to make people understand that if we don't fix these things and correct these things for the greater good, it's just going to have some cascading effect for the port, and that's going to affect the ability to bring the 90% of the goods that have to come into the island. This also includes military construction. So
yeah.
about 30% of the 90% is quantified for military construction because all those things you see on the commissary, the Navy Exchange, all those things by law, they come through the Port Authority of Guam. They don't get offloaded at the Navy Pier. You don't have any kind of activity on the Navy side like that whatsoever. Everything comes through the Port of Guam.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So let's talk about it. You made mention of your three aging gantry cranes, and of course, the cranes and your 2,700 feet of wharf frontage space. How are you maximizing the use of that, or what are you doing to try to improve throughput, of that space and equipment so that your onload and offload times are, reduced to the max amount?
We're meeting all of our KPIs in terms of vessel productivity, our berth time, and those are the things that we track.
Can you
We
say that again? What are those KPIs?
Our KPIs, we've established the vessel service standard with the carriers. And obviously, one carrier to go from 36 hours down to 24 and a half hours, they're very happy because less berth time here on Guam, that means they get to burn less fuel to go to the next port. And they save hundreds and thousands of dollars in not having to be here as long as they've used to have to be here in the past. And the same goes for
And you're
other.
saying 24 hours is now the standard that you've set
Yeah,
for
for
your
one
folks
one carrier. For
for
one
one carrier,
vessel carrier. Another vessel carrier went down from 48 hours, for example, down to 36 hours. So you could see how them staying here less actually translates to dollar savings for them, but also
right?
getting the containers off the ship faster gets it in the hands of the mom and pop grocery stores, and there's a whole supply chain that everybody has to do their part in order for it to work. These three gantry cranes you asked about, they were purchased used in 2009 from the Port of Los Angeles. And when they're 42 years old, and when the Public Utilities Commission made an assessment, they determined that one gantry crane, their service life would end at 2026, the other 2028, and the third one in 2030. So beginning in 2019, we recognized that that's the biggest priority is try to replace the three gantry cranes new. And so since then, so we have the specs for that. We've been chasing a grant through MARAD. MARAD is um, the arm of Department of Transportation. So two cycles in a row, we got denied because of the Buy American requirement provision. And then this time around, the third year, this time around, MARAD, the Department of Transportation, they waived the Buy American requirement for STS gantry cranes. And this is something that we've been pushing really hard for through various uh, organizations like the Association of American Ports, the Pacific Ports. The governor has been very vocal with the Pentagon because look at it this way. There's a Buy American requirement for gantry cranes or anything in particular, right? You know what that requirement is. But yet they don't manufacture gantry cranes in the United States.
Right.
Yeah,
Most
so
of them are done in China, and South Korea does some,
in
and other
Japan
places.
and Japan. And so we have been telling Department of Defense, for example, okay, if it's port funds, if it's revenue bonds that we have to borrow, because of how our procurement is structured, if a China-made crane comes in the lowest, most responsible bidder, then we have to choose a China-made crane. And so we know that those kinds of narratives and that kind of hard talk through DoD and our federal partners. And the way to get around it is, well, give us DoD funds. So that color of money will preclude us from going to buy from China. When they did the Buy American waiver, they described in parentheses without saying except China made cranes. That's basically what they described because there's a study that came out. There's about 80% of the cranes throughout the nation are from DZMP. Those are China made cranes. And there was a study that saying that the United States ought to be concerned that these cranes from China could be used as spy bots to cripple port operations, and that's when you have the national security arm of what we do at the port play into the criticality of how we have to be both mindful of our obligations for commerce and how the role the port plays in every economy in every community they're in, but also in Guam, particular, what we're doing now for national security.
Yeah, so those are um, some of the things that I kind of want to dig a little bit deeper in.
Yeah.
What are you doing um, to basically ensure um, the security of the cranes from a cyber standpoint, right? Because they are foreign made and not just foreign made, China made in China. And two, with such a large capital intensive purchase, how are you raising the funds for that? I know you talked about grants, but I'm sure that's not covering all of what you need in terms of replacing all three cranes.
Yeah, so there was also a Biden executive order, the time President Biden was in office, that gave additional responsibility and authority to the Coast Guard. And so the port is regulated by the captain of the port for all the commercial port activity. And then the inland, of course, is the governor, right? So when there's a typhoon, it's the captain of the port that sets the different statuses on when we stop operating, and then those are like condition of readiness 4, 3, 2, 1 that the governor sets, and then with the Coast Guard they go all the way down to Zulu, which is actually on the port. We if we're successful in getting that MARAD grant, the only thing we would need is a matching requirement. It would be a 80/20. And so we're also working with the Guam Economic Development Authority, our oversight chair in the legislature, Senator Jesse Lujan, and the governor to float a bond that would cover whatever those matching requirements are. So it'll be twofold for the funding. It'll be uh, a grant that we would get, and then also any matching requirements could be locally funded either through port funds or by issuing a bond. And the most recently, I should have added
What are
also.
the usually the payback requirements on the bond issuance?
So it would be like a 30-year bond.
30
Uh,
year?
that service would be so right now we have a 2018 revenue bond, for example. and the annual debt service for that is about 5.7 million. So
Okay.
yeah, as an example, if we Congressman Moylan also, we're just waiting to hear back officially whatever happened. He introduced an earmark in President Trump's big beautiful bill that passed, and there's an earmark in there that tells MARAD, you the grant that the port submitted for 74 million, the that 60 million should be funded from the from MARAD. So that's the congressional earmark. The governor also has this economic adjustment committee process through the Secretary of Defense, where she has identified critical areas in terms of mitigation with what the governor feels needs to happen island wide in order to prepare for the military buildup, whether that's healthcare through her public hospital in the port, and then also with GPA, GWA, and the roads. And so we're part of that as well.
Okay. Outstanding. So I know you look at the numbers in terms of capacity and judging you know, how well you're meeting capacity requirements as well as adding additional capacity and capabilities. Um, where do you think you are in terms of current capacity levels, as well as what you are looking at numbers wise in terms of projected future demand?
So great question. Space wise, we have more than enough terminal yard space, even in the most worst case scenario. Uh, right now, I believe we're only using 40% to 50% of our terminal
40%?
capacity. It is also
Okay.
how containers are stacked up. If they go four high, then of course you can have more containers on the yard. There was a port modernization plan that was funded through MARAD and through DoD's help that provided $50 million. I think it was in 2012 that expanded the terminal yard. And so if the build-up one happened at that around that time they said it would in preparation for military buildup, we would have been okay. But the argument we make to DoD is that the buildup's been delayed. You've hence more wear and tear on the gantry cranes. Hence the Public Utilities Commission independent study that has service life extension ending for each crane. Now they could still be used past the service life. Every year the cranes are OSHA certified and they meet all the safety requirements to operate, but we just cannot be in the situation forever. It's not a good situation to be in, I'll tell you that. Our cranes do break down. Our guys have capacity and the skill set to repair it, but it's this delay, it's expensive to maintain these older equipment
And
and
you
all
probably
the,
have a hard time getting parts.
yeah, and all the things that come with it. And so, the story we tell, I was in a meeting several years ago at Indo-PACOM in Hawaii, and they said, well, with all the analysis we did, there's enough terminal yard space. This is DoD talking, right? With all the terminal yard space the port has, with expansion, with the three working gantry cranes, with all the projected throughput, the port's in good shape. And I said, well, that's assuming you have three working gantry cranes. Could you give us some time to come back and quantify what would happen if one gantry crane goes down? I wasn't thinking what the answer might be, but I just threw that out as a hypothetical. And they said, yes. So about a week's time, we came back, presented the data to them, and showed them that if one gantry crane goes down, it's going to set back the whole military readiness program by about 4 years. And so when they heard
Wow.
by 4 years, so that's military construction, that's everything. That's the missile defense system. That's why every time we respond to economic EIS, the scoping meetings, and those are the things we talk about. If DoD doesn't take visibility of the condition of the port's cranes, good luck in this whole national security posture, because this is where it starts. It starts and ends at the port, because we also have to have the ability to receive and deploy critical military assets. And thankfully, we have a very good through the governor and through her leadership with Joint Region Marianas, Indo-PACOM. They're tracking. We have a lot of defense logistics. They come through here, and also JRM people come through here, the port. And that's what they constantly ask is, where you at with the cranes? What do we have to do? Who do we have to talk to? How do we advocate? So we
Yeah, so
ready.
a couple of guests back, I had on Lieutenant General retired Leo Kaczynski, and he
Mm.
was the J4 Director of Logistics on the Joint Staff, and he was talking about his visits through here with the other directors of logistics for DLA, the services, etc., and how eye-opening it was for them in terms of the fragility of the port throughput. Um, Back in DC and at Indo-PACOM, they had all of these different ideas about what they could do and this, that, and the other. But coming here and actually putting eyes on it and hearing from the folks on the ground was very helpful for them to put some realism into some of the plans and stuff that they were looking at.
And what's fascinating is when you hear from the logistics people, they're getting, knock on wood, right? They're getting their throughput, their commodities through the port easy, seamless, that no hiccups. So from the logistics folks, they're like, hey, there's no problem. Things are going great. Then from the planners, because we communicate with military planners also, they understand everything has a service life, everything has a shelf life. So they understand our struggles with getting the resources necessary to replace these three gantry cranes. And so I always say it's like we're figure skating on thin ice. So we don't sugarcoat anything. But you're right, the fragility during Mawar, with the extensive damage we had, we were able to open up after just 3 days of being hit by that typhoon. But think about it, how our guys prepared for the typhoon. This typhoon hovered over the island for about maybe 12 hours, right? It was very wet. There was so
Yes,
many reports of generators throughout the island that weren't working. Even here at the port, we have five load centers, generators. Our generators were down also because the rain got in, the wind, the salt water. But then with the gantry cranes, our guys, they shrink wrap. They bubble wrap with plastic, like Saran wrap, right? They wrapped it with the generators on the gantry crane. They wrapped it. They they waterproofed it. And
yes.
I just keep thinking about, if they didn't go the extra mile to do all that stuff and just
What that did in terms of preventative measures to keep uptime and allow you to be resilient and come right back into operations.
correct. And also, yeah, and so that extra effort that they took, the ownership that they take into port equipment, to operations, to even finding ways to improve the system. So you don't get any real pushback like, oh, I've been doing this for 30 years. No, but everybody's open to new ideas. And but the one thing that I want to make sure is that if something is working, just keep doing it. And that's what it's the beauty about your topic, right? What your it's innovation is. If it's working, just keep doing it. If it needs to be tweaked, then let's tweak it. If it's not working, then throw it out.
Yeah, yeah. So, Rory, I want to get into really the heart of what I want to talk to you about here in the this episode, and that's really kind of related to kind of the underlying foundation of this podcast. And here, what we see is the opportunity for Guam to transform itself into a 21st century tech and innovation hub. And we do that by bringing on more industrial capability. So there was a transshipment task force that talked about opportunities for value added manufacturing capabilities. There's also the regional sustainment framework and national defense industrial strategy that have dropped within the last year and a half, that's talking about DOD's desire to push more industrial capability forward to the theater. And it only makes sense if they do something like that. It's probably coming to Guam, and the need for kind of a cottage industry to break out in Guam to help provide sustainment capability to the forces here
Mhm.
on Guam. You know, for so many years, we've been content on getting an economic boost from the construction that happens or an increased amount of military members and their families being assigned here and spending their dollars on the economy. What we really want to start thinking about is how do we now build businesses that are providing maintenance, repair, overhaul, sustainment, and logistics to the ships, the submarines, the aircraft, the weapon systems that are not just home ported here, but also transit through here back and forth, and not just U.S. Weapon systems, but also those of our coalition allies. So we see that as the foundation of what you can start building this industrial capability on. So, with all of that said, if we
I,
start really building up to this larger industrial capability, we start doing more imports and a lot more exports than we see. Is the port really ready to handle that?
well, I'm proud to report that gone are the days where the Port Authority of Guam is just something that is an operation that discharges a vessel. Like I said, take containers off the ship, move containers out of the port, next vessel. No, it's we have our 2023 master plan coming in. We looked at 600 acres of available commercial property, and we from that moment on, we're looking at flipping the whole business model of the port, where Department of Defense will be our largest customer. And we're not just doing this a year ago, 2 years ago. This was really been the shift that we took 7 years ago, looking at the geopolitical issues, looking at the role that Guam plays, being tip of the spear, and all that. The port has a very critical role. We're a strategic port as well. We have a critical role in the defense of our nation, and
Yes,
so we've also we're a part of giving the data points that what is that company that wants to do the 3D printing?
yes,
Yeah, I know that they have they have a lot of traction. They might actually be setting up sometime soon where they could print ship's gears and parts and the kind of things that you talk about, right? Absent having a ship repair facility, which is something that the military sorely needs as well. We did a port readiness plan that takes a look at port property, puts it into a like a catalog that I could give to DOD. Anyone can read it and say, okay, if you want the port to be ready so the military can be ready, these are the investments that DOD needs to make in order to get the port to where it needs to be. Because we say if the port's not ready, the military is not going to be ready. That's the reality.
right.
Look at the glass breakwater project. They needed the contractor there, Black Construction and Tudor Perini. They needed our HWARF in order to make that project possible. So we negotiated with them. They've agreed to pay the statutory rate for commercial leases, but we also were able to negotiate something that was a win-win, and that's a dollar for dollar offset. And so they what they're building also at the old Hawaiian Rock area, which is now we call it the Black Construction Site. They have a 8,800 square foot warehouse office space, another 4,400.
Not on Hotel Wharf.
No, this is old Hawaiian Rock area. This is now
Where's that?
inside the port. It's across the as you come inside, it's by the seawall. It used to be an
Okay.
area that was just a eyesore where people just where they put scrap metal and abandoned vehicles, and but now it's all being cleaned up, and that's only a 4-year lease. And we're looking at the opportunity. The governor was in China and they talked about chip manufacturing. Down the road,
Yes.
the chip manufacturing assembly plant. Um, Opportunities are endless and limitless with the transshipment task force and adding value. If something is manufactured in Asia, brought to Guam, and just reassembled, that might qualify for a Buy American product, made in America, right? Guam is where America's day begins, and so we don't want to rely solely on throughput as our revenue stream. We're looking at other sources of revenue that we have to create, like transshipment, commercial property. We're
Yeah.
happy to land that big
So
rental.
Rory,
Go ahead.
can I ask you about if you have something on your radar scope? Because I've had several conversations with different companies about this very thing right now, but I really haven't heard anything from the government or the port side on this. And that's the idea of building a large commercial um, common use kind of facility in the port that can be used as a ship repair, maintenance, repair, and overhaul kind of facility. State of the art, air power, um, sink lift, all of that kind of stuff, with the idea that if Gov Guam owned that there would be a lot of different companies who would be ready to roll in on that and use that facility. Quite frankly, you could have multiple contractors working on multiple different DoD contracts, working out of the same facility at the same time, and they would be paying the the fees for the rent, but also, if we had the right kind of ship repair workforce pipeline development, we could offer them the manpower as well to do that. But obviously, that would be something that we would need to, either private equity raise money or a bond initiative or something like that. But uh, I know it sounds a lot like if you if you build it, they will come. But
What's
I
it
think
gonna
it's a
say?
really good investment for the future.
In our port readiness plan with HWARF, what that plan called for originally was to be an alternate port to and also to be the for the cruise ship when the cruise ship comes into the island, maybe the home porting of a cruise ship, and that's where it could be staged. But what I've asked the consultants to do in the port readiness plan exercise is to look at HWARF to see if that space can also be better used for a ship repair facility.
Yeah,
Um,
that would be wonderful.
yeah, because if we have enough dock space, you talked about the 27 feet of berth space right now to handle all the commercial cargo and everything has to come in. Even with
Right.
the increased throughput, we don't. Then with H wharf, they thought back then, okay, we'll just have an alternate wharf that anything that can be offloaded off of a vessel without the use of a gantry crane, we'll push it over there. Then I kept thinking, well, what is the organic needs of the port? Before you do an alternate wharf, you better buy your gantry cranes. Going back
Yeah.
to basics. And so, the board agreed to pause construction on H wharf, claw back the money that we need even to buy one gantry crane. That's all we need to let procurement go out. And then so the procurement, I say this publicly, is like what would it cost us? Um, one crane plus shipping, two cranes plus shipping, three cranes plus shipping. Then whatever the responses are, we determine how much money we have, but it behooves us to try to buy all three cranes at one time, and that's always going to be the goal, right?
Right.
Then and then after Black Construction is done with their 4-year lease at H Wharf, their lease includes rehabilitating, putting security gates, security lighting, making that a functional wharf. Uh, who knows if someone comes in like you talked about, wants to dock a a ship repair facility and create that kind of operation, that's also a possibility in the pipeline.
Yeah.
And there are
That
interests, though. There are interests. There are people that's come through here because the military needs a ship repair facility here on Guam,
they
and
do.
for us, those are jobs that we want to have on Guam. They're good paying
Yes.
jobs. They're stable jobs. It's good for the economy. It There's a need for it. People military, they have to go to other places, right? I think of in Singapore, it's more expensive for them. So it just behooves everybody to try to figure this out.
Yeah, there's definitely a need for it, and um, unfortunately, it's not going to look like what it did in the past. In the past, you were talking about a military-owned or government-owned facility employing, Department
Yeah.
of the Navy kind of folks, at 8 to 1,200 folks in the workforce. That's not what it's going to look like in the future. What it's going to look like in the future is more like a commercial or a public-private partnership where different entities, operate or own different aspects of the operation going on there. And like you said, it's needed. It's truly needed. And I look at all of the ship repair pier side that happens down in the inner harbor right now today. The government of Guam gets no tax revenue and no tax benefit from that. So the idea that you could get money from lease and you could get money from tax, and depending on how you structure the plug-in of the defense industry players coming in, you could also charge fees for getting them set up and running. So that there's an opportunity to make money off of um, an operation like that. But unfortunately, I don't think the Navy or the Department of Defense is going to come in and just plop down money and capital to make that happen. And I don't necessarily think that any defense industry is going to necessarily do that. I think it's something that really government of Guam has to lead on.
I agree.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm really glad to hear that those kind of things and um, looking at diversity in revenue streams is being looked at. Um, you talked a little bit about the Hotel Wharf um, modernization plan or a refurbishment. Can you tell a little bit more detail about that and how long it's going to take and
Yeah,
what's all involved with that?
so originally the plan for Hotel Wharf was to rehabilitate that. I think the draft calls for about 30 to 32 feet, and to be an alternate wharf for in the event there's congestion in the main wharf, can divert ships over to H wharf if they have to be. They could be discharged without the use of a gantry crane. So, like a Ro-Ro, for example, can be done there. When the cruise ships come to Guam, uh, the, the men and women here work very hard to transform a container terminal into a cruise ship terminal. They actually line up the containers so that the passengers go through makeshift corridor and that they don't go into other areas of the port because of the security issues. It's very cumbersome. Plus, we also have to ask the other carriers, hey, can you not come in for a couple days because we shift things
You have
around.
to reset from
The,
all of that. Yeah.
that cruise ship comes here for about 12 hours. So that's what can be ported at H Wharf. They're not going to have any of those problems. With the black construction lease for the glass breakwater project, they're going to put in about $2.4 million worth of work. They're going to rehabilitate the wharf. They're going to resurface it. Like I said, security fencing, lighting. They're not going to do anywhere near what our modernization plan called for because it extends more extensive work in the tens of thousands, right? It's very much more expensive than the 2.4 million. But in addition to that, Rob, they're going to pave the road all the way down to Family Beach.
Oh,
Um,
very nice.
yeah, so the
Very nice.
first time, and then you're gonna have lighting all the way down to Family Beach.
Yes.
And so what we're
Yes.
negotiating with them is can in part of that dollar for dollar offset, and there's still, there's this not we're not giving away any discounted rates for our commercial leases. They still preserve the structure, the statutory rate of 56 cents a square foot. But we're asking them to build a bathroom and shower facility at Family Beach, and those are in the plans. I think it'd be fascinating if we could finally provide a restroom and shower facility at Family Beach, like what we did there at the Agate Marina. And so we have Family Beach outfitted that way, have pavilions and barbecue pits, and having so that the community can have another spot that they can go and enjoy, right, safely.
Yes.
Yeah, upside of that too is when you have a cruise ship that comes in for about 12 hours, now it's easy to bus them over to Family Beach, have food trucks down there, have GVB
Ah,
station
yeah.
there. What do you do with 5,000 people? And there's
Yes.
so many taxis on island, so many buses on island. So we bus as many that want to go down to Family Beach and jet ski and create that visitor experience here at Cabarrus Island. I think that'll go a long way to I think that's part of being innovative, right? Uh, Figuring out those solutions with whatever capacity we have.
Yeah.
After Black Construction is done with their 4-year lease, we're hoping that during that time, because we're still going back to MARAD, we're in active discussions with MARAD to get about $100 million grant from them to thoroughly rehabilitate HWARF, so it could be a joint use facility with the military. They're experiencing so much congestion on the Navy side. They're very interested in HWARF. In fact, Admiral Nicholson, when we did the groundbreaking several years ago, he was the first one to show up. He was the last person to leave. He wrote a testimony saying that he liked that to be dredged down to 40 feet. Thinking of maybe berthing a
Yeah.
aircraft carrier or something of significant size, right? A vessel. And
Right.
but we've been telling Joint Region Marianas that if that's the desire, that money has to be put on the table now so the plans can be updated. You don't just have a design for a draft of 32 feet, build it, and then a year after that, say, I want to go to 40 feet. You don't dredge. It's not as easy as you have because you need more sheet pilings to so you're stuck with that design until you redesign it and redo it over. And so that's the kind of messaging that we have. So if done right, there's so much opportunity for joint use between the Navy and the port that accomplishes our mission here at the port, and we collect the revenue as a result.
Very good. Very good. Can you tell us more about sustainability initiatives like the Recycling Enterprise Zone and Zero Emission Strategy? What are they? Why are they important? And how do they help kind of future-proof the port operations?
We're really excited with the addition of Miss Conchita Titan on our board. She retired from EPA. Lieutenant Governor asked her to be on our board, which she agreed. So we started looking at the Clean Ports Initiative and her work with the first gentleman with the Zero Waste Task Force that they did the study island wide. That study was replicated just here at the port. All those data points were collected, quantified, and submitted as part of a grant that we applied for from the Clean Ports program. Then we got a $2.4 million grant to do zero emissions study going down to third tier and fourth tier, but also looking at opportunities of resiliency. This administration, we can't talk about sea level rising, climate change, but certainly we're encouraged because they do want to talk about resiliency, hardening the system, and so we were fortunate to be able to keep the $2.4 million because the money was uploaded early on. And as a result, we have a scope of work that we have to follow. This recycling enterprise zone is a law that I'd authored my first year in office that sets aside 10 acres of port property and that would do what you talked about with the ship repair facility, but this time imagine it for the recycling businesses. Government
Okay.
government will come in, set up a automobile recycling center, a tire baler, a glass crusher, set up all these different uh, systems, all these different, and then private sector will come in through a competitive bid process, say, oh, I want to run the automobile recycling center. So they don't put up the capital. So they would get the contract to run it. So the government builds it, sets it up, gets out of it. Private sector runs it, uh, and,
Right.
and the way we were going to fund that was advanced disposal fees, which would put like $200 per every vehicle coming into the island, $50 for every washer, dryer, white good. Everything was already laid out. We Democrats at the time we had the majority, and that was already law. Then we lost the majority. You could fact check me, you can. So the day that thing was supposed to go into implementation, they called a emergency session and they repealed the advanced disposal fee law. And at
Mm,
the time, the first year alone, and EPA did all the rules and regs already. They were ready to go. But the Automobile Dealers Association came out. They didn't want to put up $200 up front per vehicle. But instead of working something out, they just repealed everything in its entirety. But we could have had an opportunity to create redemption centers. So if I need to turn in my washer and dryer, at least I get $50 back, right? Or get some percentage back from what I deposited.
right.
Um, uh, I mean, but notwithstanding what happened over the last 20 years, this area that Black Construction cleaned up, the area they're at, the new Black Construction site, there's still opportunity to do the recycling enterprise zone because they have a section where they're gonna have a lay down of cement where they're gonna be building the pilings that they need for the glass breakwater repair. So when all of that's done, that has the potential for the port to create that recycling enterprise zone. And in this clean port grant, those are some of the requirements that they have to deliver on a plan to make all of these things work.
Okay. All right. Let's get to the hot topic, the privatization debate. So there's
Okay.
been a lot of discussion, including public exchanges between you and Guam entrepreneur Charlie Hermosa about whether the port should be privatized. You firmly say the port is not for sale. Can you talk to me about why you stand on that and what you see as the risk of privatization?
One addition to me just saying the port's not for sale, there's law that says the port's not for sale. So when I was in the legislature, there was talk of privatizing port operations. And so I co-wrote this law with Senator Tom Addo, who had oversight over transportation. And we made it so that no one in government can spend any funds, public or private, can have any privatization studies without the legislature implicitly and explicitly authorizing that privatization effort from the very beginning. Because what we saw is that you have agencies going down the road of privatization, or maybe the legislature going down the road of privatization, and at that point, there's no option but to privatize because they're already saying all of these things are necessary. But in the case of the port, you wouldn't want to privatize port operations, just like you would never want to privatize your power distribution, your water line distribution, your public safety, and things like that. Uh, Here at the port, with 90% of the goods coming to the island being put out to the community, if the port were privatized, you run the risk of, well, maybe I will release this company's containers before that company's containers. Will it happen? Who knows? But it's in the realm of possibilities. You'd also have to have profit over accountability. There'll be rate hikes, and we're not experiencing any of those things here in today's modern world here at the port.
Okay. So let me do this. Let me put on my devil's advocate hat and then start shooting you some advocate questions. So the first one, um, a lot of the ports, it seems like around the world, are privatized to some degree or not, whether fully privatized or portions of it outsourced or privatized. Why would that not work here in Guam, even if it's a portion of the port, not all of the port that's outsourced?
Because if you live in a community in the States, there's other means of getting the goods into that community. It's intermodal. It could be through a trucking company, could be a train, through railroad. You know, Guam is just it's just the port. And in other models, like in Hawaii, Hawaii owns the land, but then the concessions are outsourced. But you wouldn't have you have multi-concessionaires, so you'll still create the competition. Here on Guam, if you privatize the port, it'll just be one, I guess the model might be just one operator. Like in the case of the port, it's one operator, and then they would just like I was telling Charlie that it'll be profit over accountability. There's when we talked about the closure of SRF, those mid-level paying jobs were very important even in the overall scheme of the economy, right? And those individuals and those families, you go to privatize port operations, you probably have over 200 employees. Where would they go? It's a structure that I believe it's working. Um, Rates are relatively low, productivity is high. Uh, as I said to Charlie, go find something else to fix, and if it ain't broken, don't fix it. But
Okay.
I know back then, Robert, we were back then as I am now against the privatization of the port is for those very reasons.
So
Whoever controls the port controls the economy, and it has to remain in the public's hands.
yeah, that makes sense. So still wearing the devil's advocate hat. Um, so I think kind of what started this whole thing was kind of the announcement or of the fees or the rate increases. So for those increases, what in terms of efficiency or effectiveness are the customers getting back with those increases?
Well, the last time there was a general increase, it was 7%, and then 1% for several fiscal years all the way up until 2020. So fiscal year 2020 was the last time the port ever had a tariff increase. So what we're doing now is
You
our
said 2020?
yeah,
Okay.
2020. So what we're doing now is our labor charge out rates for all the positions that are tied to vessel ops, they're pegged at 2020 labor rates. And so we're asking the Public Utilities Commission to allow us to update our labor charge out rate to 2025, like what any business would do, right? It's looking at our business model. What will we get by updating these tariffs? Well, we're we're meeting our KPIs. We're in the process of hiring nine additional port terminal workers, uh, two cargo checkers, uh, eight equipment operators, and then also on the maintenance side, we have a list of employees that we're hiring. you they say to me, well, are you doing this revenue adjustment because you need to get more revenue? I'm saying no matter what our revenue position is or whatever our financial posture is, this is something any business would do because it doesn't make sense to be charging 2020 labor rates when it's 2025, and all we're asking to do is to update it. And when I gave my speech before the chamber and I put in those terms, something that they could easily understand.
Okay. Other devil's advocate question. Do you think that it would give you more um, flexibility and agility if part of it was privatized, like the equipment maintenance piece? Would that allow you to achieve higher up times on equipment and facilitate easier sourcing of parts because you don't have to use the government procurement system to get those parts? You could just hold a contractor responsible for like an availability rate or something like that, and then just have them get it whatever way they need to.
So thank you for that question because you allowed me to clarify. I'm not against privatization at all. And saying the port's not for sale, what we are not going to privatize by law is the operations of the port. You know, the stevedores, the cargo handling, but we do have a PMC, a private maintenance contract, where we have a consultant, and Matson is our consultant now for the gantry crane maintenance. And
You
so
said Matson is the
Matson,
consultant?
yeah, for the PMC, for the gantry crane maintenance program. So you're spot on when you said sometimes procurement backlogs everybody, but with the PMC, they can purchase for us through their own procurement means, and so we've exercised that from time to time. We do have a management agreement with our field peers. TriStar is managing F1. When Golf Pier was operational, Mobile was managing Golf Pier. Most recently, the board allowed me to put out a P3, a public-private partnership for the field piers and our Area A field storage because I made it very clear that the Port Authority of Guam is not in the field business. And it doesn't make sense if it's going to cost $300 million to replace those facilities, and the throughput from the field annual revenue is about 2 million. All this is public information. 2 million, even with a 30-year lease, that's 60 million of revenue. Who's going to put up 300 million? How's that going to work?
Yeah.
We don't know. Maybe someone will, someone will may not. But if we put out a P3 through that solicitation process and the RFP process, then whoever puts in the proposal that through the analysis would be in the best interest of the port, then that proposal will be passed on to the legislature, just like Cementon. That's how Cementon is here at the port. The port's not in the cement business, but it's port property where the operation is taking place. And cement's also very critical, right, for the economy whether
Right.
everything, jobs, everything that we bring in are tied to is jobs, it's the economy, it's so um, you could, uh, but what I'm trying to do to be innovative is we've been outsourcing the the employees here at the port and charging through our special service requests, and we've been doing it. So it's reverse privatization. If someone here at Caris Island needs a mechanic, for example, one of the carriers or one of the our tenants here needs a welder, we make arrangements and through a special service request, our guys do the work. The company gets the bill and they pay it. They
Okay.
It's fascinating, just like with the school program. Um, our guys got dispatched to do some of the work, and we submitted an invoice during Typhoon Mawar. Our welders assembled 40 dumpster containers, and we submitted an invoice for all that labor. And so those are instances of how we could outsource our own labor in order to diversify the revenue stream here and and keep things moving. And it's not just keep things moving because we need the money to pay the people, which is obviously always a goal. But the underlying goal here with the industry is we have to share resources. And so when we're looking at a Job Corps or boot camp, we're working with the Port Users Group to say, don't only advocate for what company A needs or company B needs, it should be that skill set across the board. And we have to share resources because when the military throughput, the demand is up, we from the port's perspective, we are not going to hire another 50 60 stevedores to bring in all this throughput, and then post-military construction when you're on the downturn, we're not going to be able to sustain that. So that's all sustainability and making sure that what we do transcends the test of time, and we could do, we could be okay, not for the moment, but it could be sustainable. And that's how we look at things.
That makes sense. So let's turn our attention real quick to like um, strategic plan and
Mm.
strategic planning targets that you want to drive your folks forward. Like, do you have KPIs like um, cost per container, um, downtime, throughput, um, um, time to unload, time to uh, load, uh, time of trucks waiting to get into the port, out of the port, all of those customer facing metrics. Do you have those and do you like advertise those to your customers to show that you're making incremental improvement over time and you rally everybody around those goals?
We don't have it in that detail, but that's something that we want. That's something that we need. When we looked at the financial management system and this enterprise one that we have and the E1 modules that can be created, I said to the team, "Wow, wouldn't it be something is that if that operation you push a button and you could tell immediately if the port made money or lost money." Everybody's eyes open up, right? So what we track right now are just the fundamentals. How long was the ship berth here? How long did operations take? How many containers came off the vessel? How many container moves per hour is so on that matrix, if and operations is tracked like in real time, right? It's so if a crane operator is not as quick as someone who's more seasoned, there have been times when operations will change that crane operator. Say, hey, you're not meeting the KPI. Otherwise, this vessel's going to be here for another hour, another 2 hours. So they can almost tell you how long the ship's going to stay based on the number of containers they have on the vessel. They do all those. The vessel planners do all those projections. They
Right.
sit down with the agents, and so they determine what the expectation is going to be, what kind of equipment is going to be used, how many manpower is needed, and so they can project how many hours the vessel is going to be here. Now, in terms of like the truckers, if we're not meeting the trucker standard, then I would know about it. Really, I would, because they'll message me or they'll call me. Hey, we heard the top loaders are down. What's going on? Then I'll check. No, they're up and running. I don't know what you heard, but I think we're tracking, right? So I know from the private sector side, they know how long it takes to run a container from their mom and pop person or wherever their company they have to move these containers for. I know they track those things to a T, and if we're not meeting what they believe the standard ought to be, then we talk about it during the port users group meeting.
And how often do you have those port user group
Once a
meetings?
once a month.
Once a month. Okay.
And that also
Outstanding.
that also includes the Coast Guard, Customs. And then if you want to talk about the KPIs and the vessel service standards, let's throw in the whole Attorney General, every container ought to be inspected. The drugs are coming into the port. Well, the idea of inspecting every single container, that's going to be customs call, but we do everything we can to support customs. We're not in the business of, there's only two entities that can cut a seal. That's the port, that's customs, and that's the Coast Guard that can, but the port doesn't do any inspection of containers. And then we also, many years ago, created a system where the containers coming off the vessel, the cargo checker, they see that the seal is not there or it's broken. They would radio high tower. High tower will stop operations. Port police will come, blue light, confiscate the container, take it to a dray area, and then customs will come and the customs will choose to either inspect the container or reseal it, but all of those things are being documented and recorded.
Understood. Understood. Well, great conversation. As we begin to wrap up today's podcast episode, I'd love to turn the mic over to you and, let you lead the audience with what you think they should know most about Guam's port and what you bring to the fight.
Well, thank you, Coach, for the opportunity. I hope you could invite me on your show again to give these periodic updates. I'll never say no to these kinds of exchanges where I could have a opportunity to just celebrate the hard work of our men and women here at the port. I think the pandemic redefined a lot of things, and for the port, it redefined who we are and what it means to be a port employee. There's a saying, "Port Strong," and on the occasion of celebrating our 50th anniversary, we worked into the theme. It's the grit. It's what port employees do every day. They get up in the morning, they make their bed, and they come to work because they realize that if they don't come to work, and everything from discharging containers from a vessel to finance to planning through CIP engineering, every single port employee here plays a critical role in ensuring that the port remains operational. So, and they know that if they don't come to work and do what they can to get that container out to the community, they might not have groceries to buy or hospital equipment to. So their mindset has changed. They're not just coming here to work for a paycheck. They're coming here because they're motivated by mission, and that's to keep the goods coming in through the island.
Yeah, Rory, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to be on the Innovate Guam podcast. The mission that you all do at the port is so, so important. So please take back to your folks how much we appreciate them and what they do. And another reason why I was so excited to have you on the podcast is because if Guam is ever going to transform itself into this 21st century, tech and innovation hub, you all are going to have a huge part of that.
Absolutely.
So again, like you said, it begins and ends with the port. That is certainly true. So getting a chance to talk to you and see what you all are doing, what your plans are and stuff like that has been very value added because it underlies what we're able to do to get to that future we want to get to. So thank you
Thanks.
so much. Um,
Thanks.
and to my guests, I hope you all learned something as well. I was certainly inspired here, and I appreciate the job that Rory and his folks do on a day-to-day basis, making miracles happen. Please remember to follow me on all social media platforms, including Substack. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to stay up to date on all future episodes. And don't forget to check out my Innovate column in the Pacific Daily News every first and third Friday of each month. I'll see you next time. And remember, whether at work, at home, or at play, always innovate. Thank you so much.